There we go.
Right there's good? Okay. First, I want to say that everything that I'm going to tell you is the absolute truth. 100% happened. It was a day like today, except it was sunny and it was a Wednesday. I had just started a motorcycle shop in 2008. Now, in 2008, it was easier to start a business than it is now, because back then you could start a business. Today, I wouldn't bother. However, just starting a new business, you do get stressed, and you have to release the stress every once in a while. I had way more hair, and it was all brown, by the way. I had more hair back then. And I was 44 years old, married, and had 2 young children. So if you're doing the math, I'm 53, by the way. So it was a Wednesday. I finished work, and I heard that there was a party going on at Fifth Gear Motorcycles in Richmond. They had bike nights. It was every Wednesday night. So I got on my trusty BMW K100, my trusty steed that I've had for many years, and I took a case of Coronas. I drank 6 before I left because I wanted to feel the vibe of the road. And then I went to Fifth Gear, and then I proceeded to drink the rest of the case of 2-4 of Coronas. Which is quite easy, by the way. I know you're all thinking, well, that's a lot of beer. It's not really a lot of beer. Not really. And so about 1 o'clock in the morning, decided that I should go home because I was quite intoxicated. Now, you got to remember, this is years ago, and the whole drinking and driving thing. It's always been, if you can get going, you're going to be okay, especially on a motorcycle. So, got going, and it was okay. Some ride really good. I get to Ladner, and I can see my house. And I said to myself, I should just go home. But then the other part of me, which is dumb, said, you better not go home because your wife is going to find you and she's going to be really angry. So you should just go back to your shop, which is in Vancouver. And I said, you're right, I should just go back to my shop. So I turned around, and this is where it all goes bad. Because I decided if I'm really, really intoxicated, I should get back to my shop as fast as humanly possible. So, through the tunnel, and I came out of the tunnel, Fifth Gear, wide open. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, there's no traffic on the road. Up Highway 99, I'm just booting it, I'm having a great time. The speedometer's buried, there's nobody around. I'm like, yeah, this is living, man, this is all right. Then I come across the Oak Street Bridge, and then the ground is all really, really bright around me. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. I guess my eyes are working better because I can see great. And then I missed the first exit because I was really intoxicated, going too fast. And I missed the second exit because I was still going too fast. And I got the third exit, which was actually an on-ramp. Went down the on-ramp, and I come across the road, and then I went this way, that way, and then I ended up in front of my shop. And I look at the door, I'm like, man, who painted my door? This is not my door. What the hell? I was in the wrong complex. So down the sidewalk, I get into my complex. I'm like, all right, I made it. Cool, man. Get out my keys, open the door, and I'm just cracking another beer. I'm standing in the doorway, and all of a sudden, cop car pulls in. Another cop car pulls in. Guys jump out. VPD, they're come out of the building, you Mal, whatever you go, driving down the road. I'm like, whoa, 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 what's going on, guys? Well, they can't come in the building. Okay, and I can't go out because I'm not going out. They're out there, but they can't come in. So there was a standoff, whereupon I'm standing inside the building having a beer. They're outside the building yelling at me to come out. I'm not going out there. Fuck that. Forget you guys, man. I'm not going out there. So another cop car shows up. Another cop car shows up. And then the cops are yelling at me, and one cop says, hey, you think you're so smart you can run from a helicopter? And I'm, helicopter? That's why it was so bright. That's why I could see everything so well. And then the cop, he says, yeah, you think you run from a helicopter? And I go, what helicopter? He goes, that one. So I poke my head out the door to look, and they just grab me out the door, up against the wall, face against the glass, freaking handcuffs. Now I'm all intoxicated, standing there. He goes, yeah. And the guy says, what's your name? I said, I'm not really sure. And he goes, where's your ID? I said, in my pocket. He says, well, dig it out. And I'm like, I got handcuffs on, man. Like, you guys aren't really that bright. So he digs in my pocket and pulls it out. And I'll never forget this. He looks at the ID and he goes, Mr. Sweet. I said, yes. He goes, you're 44 years old. I said, yes. He says, you're married. I said, yes. He goes, you have children. I go, yeah. He goes, what the hell are you doing? And I said, well, every once in a while, you gotta push the edge just to prove you're alive. And he says, I don't believe that. I said, well, how old are you? He said, I'm 22. I said, well, you come talk to me when you're 40. And then I stood there, and then they're deciding what to do. So I'm standing there and I'm counting. There's 8 cop cars, okay? And they're all standing there and they're wandering around, bumping into each other. And then the main cop car pulls in. This is the RCMP. They're the ones that called it in Richmond. So he comes out. First thing he says, get the handcuffs off him. So they take the handcuffs off. So then he comes up and he goes, do you know how fast you were going? I said, wasn't me. He goes, he says, we've been tracking you since Richmond. Pretty sure it was you. Okay. So he says, do you know how fast you were going? I said, no. He said, when you came out of the tunnel, it was like a bullet coming out of a gun. And he said, when you went by me, I was parked on an overpass. He said, you went by me, my radar gun lit up like a Christmas tree. I said, huh, okay. So how'd you know about the tunnel? And he says, we have cameras in the tunnel, dumbass. Okay, I said, so what's gonna happen now? He says, well, I'm gonna have to have you blow in the machine. I said, I'm gonna fail. He goes, yeah, probably, but we have to. So I go blow, it's all red. Meanwhile, he calls the tow truck. So then the tow truck shows up and I said, look, I can just put my bike in the shop. And he goes, nope, gotta haul it away. So he calls the guy, they load it. Meanwhile, he starts getting rid of all the VPD. It's just a speeder, no big deal. So they let them all go, and then he's like, okay, I'm gonna give you a fine. And I'm like, and I'm gonna take your license. And I said, oh, really? He says, yeah. So you go over to the car and he says, here's the fine. And I look at it, it's $465 for speeding or whatever. And I said, $465? I said, come on, man, seriously? And he looks at me and goes, Mr. Sweet, we both know what the alternative is. I said, yeah, you're right. I'll just take the ticket. And he goes, okay, I now have your motorcycle. I have your license. Am I going to see you on the road again tonight? I said, probably not. He goes, good. Go to bed. All right. So I go to bed. Slept. All right, sleep with a baby. I don't have my motorcycle anymore, and so I don't have to worry about anything until I wake up. Next morning, wake up, and I had to get one of my employees to drive me to my house to pick up some motorcycle parts, whereupon my wife answered the door, and she said, where's your motorcycle? I said, she said, why is ex-employee driving here? Are you going to tell me? Go away. Okay. 2 days later, she finally let me back in the house, and I had to ask her to come with me to the impound yard to get my motorcycle out. And she rode the bike back, and yeah, I slept on the couch for a couple weeks. And to this day, she's not here, because I never actually, I told her I just got pulled over and my bike got took away. She doesn't know about the helicopters or the 8 cop cars. Yeah, it was a fun time. I learned something though, that you cannot run away from the police like you used to. They will find you. Yeah, it was fun. And that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
A motorcycle in New Zealand where they ride on the wrong side of the road, other side of the road, and the reduced speed curvy road ahead signs are not fucking around, okay? Has anyone ridden a motorcycle in New Zealand? No. Okay. I imagine, I feel like it's probably not as crazy as Vietnam, but they're still very twisty. So I rented a motorcycle out of the garage of a stranger that I met on the internet, which is probably a detail my mother would not like to know, so let's not tell her that part. And it was a bright green Kawasaki Ninja 250, which is about 350 less than I'm used to, if you know what I mean. Okay. my first bike was a CBR 600, so that was what I was used to at that point. And that becomes important because fast forward a little bit, I'm on the roads and I'm on one of those beautiful twisty highways going through the forest, and I quickly learned that size matters. You guys, I think we all know that, but I found myself passing a logging truck on the wrong side of the road, or what to me felt like the wrong side of the road, going up a hill. And I'm getting nervous because there is a curve coming up. I can see it coming, and I feel like I should be able to pass the logging truck before I get to the curve. But the bike is not going as fast as I need it to or expect it to, because it is a 250, okay? And so I'm starting to have a little bit of nervousness, but I'm like, you know what? It's gonna be okay, I can get there, it's gonna be okay. And then a bee flies into my helmet. And in that moment, I am like, this is it, this is how I die. It's a bee that's going to kill me. You know, I'm having these visions of Final Destination, logging truck, but the motorcycle version with the logging truck and the motorcycle and the bee, and it does not end well in my vision. All of this which is happening while I'm on the bike next to the logging truck. So in that moment, I had two options. Give in to panic and probably die in a terrible way, or get my shit together and figure out how to get through the situation and survive. And I mean, there's really only one option, right? So when I'm in that moment, the voice of my motorcycle instructor from 10 years prior comes into my brain. Where you look is where you go. And I'm like, where you look is where you go, Janelle. Where you look is where you go. Stop looking underneath the logging truck. You don't want to be there. And so I lean into my little green Ninja that could, and I flip up my visor to free the bee, and I managed to pull ahead of the logging truck just before the curve, and I survive. So clearly I'm here, so I made it out of that particular situation. And so that was the first day of my 3-day motorcycle trip in New Zealand with this bike. And the first 2 days I actually spent riding with a friend that I had met on my travels. And where was he during this moment, this near-death experience, you ask? He's way ahead of me because he had a reasonable sized 390, I think, the Duke, yeah. And so, anyways, I'm glad I survived because, of course, life is great, but also we got to see some of the most amazing scenery I've ever seen. The beaches of Raglan, which is the surfing mecca of New Zealand, just expansive black sand coastline. We drove across the twisty curves of the middle of the North Island all the way to the Coromandel Peninsula, which is this amazingly curvy coastline all around the ocean. We stopped at the top of a hill and shared a sunset with nobody, absolutely nobody, except for a field of sheep. And that was all incredible. And so this friend I rode with, I met on a small group tour that I did around the South Island of New Zealand. And this little part of the story is not about motorcycles, but I promise we'll get back to motorcycles. I need to tell it because it gives a little bit of context to the end of my story. So this group, we got pretty close on this trip, 3-week trip around the South Island. One of the reasons we got so close is that everyone was kind of going through something, you know. There was one guy on the trip who, he had just lost his mother. There was a woman on the trip who was seriously considering whether or not she should marry her fiance. And there was me. I was freshly out of a marriage after almost 10 years, after finding out that my ex-husband had been cheating on me while I had been supporting him financially through grad school, which I even sold my CBR for. So yeah, so all of that had happened, and then this amazing group trip. We all got to know each other so well. Some of us to this day are still very good friends. One of them actually is here, all the way from New Zealand to visit. And all of that to say, after that group trip, after, you know, going through all of that here in Canada, doing what any reasonable person would do, which is take out all my savings and get on a plane to the farthest away place I could think of, New Zealand, going on this motorcycle trip with my friend. After the second day, he left and went on to whatever was next. And on the third day, I found myself alone. Just me and the little green ninja that could, for the first time in a long time, completely alone. And I went out on this ride towards the beach, and it was one of my last days in New Zealand, so I'm going to say goodbye to the ocean, and it was beautiful weather, and I remember feeling so melancholy. Just like, oh, here I am, it's just me. You know, I had all these amazing experiences, all of these people surrounding me, and now here I am alone. And I just felt so alone, so completely alone. And so this is the vibe. This is the vibe that I'm having, and I recognize I'm in this amazing, most beautiful place, but I have this sadness, and I don't want to be alone right now. So I pull into this viewpoint, looking out over the ocean, one of the most beautiful scenes I've ever seen in my life, and I'm feeling sorry for myself. And then I hear a sound in the distance, and I think you guys all know the sound. It's this roaring sound that's approaching and coming closer and closer. And then they come around the corner, a group of motorcycles pulls into the viewpoint next to me, and then more of them, and then more of them, and they keep coming until there's over 100, probably almost 200 motorcycles in that little pull-out viewpoint. And I'm like, holy crap, if God exists, she rides a motorcycle clearly, because this is not something that just happens randomly. The serendipity of that moment was incredible. And so I started talking to some of the other riders, and turns out it was some Auckland motorcycle club, and they were out for the day, and they were going up to this bar north of Auckland, and they were so impressed to find this solo female motorcyclist all by herself, all the way from Canada, on a tiny little green ninja, because they all had huge bikes, and they invited me to join them. And so I joined them for the rest of the ride, and it was one of the best memories I have of that entire trip. And so I wanted to share this story because I'll never forget that moment. I'll never forget the logging truck and the bee either, because every time I feel that urge or that temptation to panic, I think of the logging truck and the bee, and I'm like, where you look is where you go. You will survive this. And I always also think of that moment in the viewpoint, because something I learned is that, you know, the motorcycle community will always show up for you. Even if you're in the middle of nowhere and there's no one, the motorcycle community will always show up. So that's my story, and thank you for being here.
Is that good? Okay, so two really short stories. I've been riding for almost 40 years. You'll disagree with the motorcycles, but I've always liked small Italian two-strokes. The biggest bike I've ever had is my old 350 Ducati, which of course now with the value of them, absolutely kicked myself for selling it way back in the day because they're worth so much money now. So first story is the 2-pint landscaper. So I'm with a group of friends of ours riding, overall riding old vintage 60s Italian scooters. We had stopped for our lunch breaks as friends of ours taking us riding around the back roads in Nanaimo in the summer. And so we stopped at a little tiny pub. I had a pint of Guinness and had lunch, and they were overwhelmed by the number. I think there's like 30 of us. It took a long time, so I got time. I'm a big guy. I have a second pint, right? So I have a second pint of Guinness. We hit the road. It's a summer day. We're going down this long straight hill, and up ahead of me is this absolutely beautiful, like farmhouse, little red barn and tractor, and I'm driving down there, and it's warm and going down the hill. I'm slowly gaining more and more speed, and I'm just feeling just great. I'm looking, I'm like, wow, they must be Swiss or German. Their farm is so neat, right? It's so beautiful. And I'm going down the hill, and as I'm going down, I'm getting faster and faster. I pass a couple of people, and I'm just looking at the farm that totally not paying attention at all. I don't realize the road does a full 90-degree turn at the bottom of the hill. At this point, I'm going about 70. And all the other bikes go off around the corner, and I'm like, holy shit, there's a corner. I put the clutch, and I go to the right-hand side to measure me, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to make it. I'm not going to, if I go, I'll flip, and then I'm like, touch the brakes, it's starting to get gravelly. So I just go off the road and out the side of the embankment. And as my friend Chris remembers seeing me on the other side of the ditch, flying through the underbrush at 60 kilometers an hour, dodging the small trees on my scooter, right? And he said I looked like some maniacal gardener on a souped-up lawnmower because all my front fender and my floorboards were chopping up all the undergrowth, and they were all shooting at the back of my bike. And I'm going along, and of course, I don't think, like, putting brakes on, I don't think to stop, to slow down on the accelerator, I don't think to drop the clutch. I just keep going the same speed. And so Chris and Jimmy are on the road, they're looking up at me on the embankment. And of course, you know, when you're riding, someone going the same speed, you're not moving relative to them, but all I see is me going, and the trees flying by at like 60 kilometers an hour, and I'm dodging these small evergreen trees, and at that moment, I don't think, like, it's probably the most dangerous place I've been in a super long time. And Chris said, he looked at me, and then it became more dangerous by both my friends because they both started laughing so hard, they almost lost it, they almost wiped out. Because they said, at that moment, I did one of the probably, like, the most impressive and retarded things at the same time. I took one of my hands off the handlebars and the clutch so I could look at them and smile and wave like the queen as I was riding. And then when my reptilian brain took over, and I thought, you know what, this is enough gardening for the day. I want to get back to riding. So I went down down the 15, 18-foot embankment, into the bottom of the ditch, up the 4 or 5 feet to the other side of the ditch, woo, caught some air, and let me tell you, 1960s scooters are not designed to fly through the air very well. I hit the road, do a couple little S-curves to get it all adjusted so the road speed and the wheel speed and the engine speed all kind of get back to normal, and then I'm back to riding, right? with the group. And all I can say is, honestly, is when we got to the next pit stop 2 hours later, I ordered not 1, but 2 pints of water. That's the first one. That's the first short story. And then the other one was, Shannon and I were going camping, my girlfriend Shannon. We were going camping on the Sunshine Coast, and she was coming straight from work. She has a Honda Shadow 750, yeah. And I ride the girly scooter. And she wanted to go straight from work, and I wanted to take my time, so I just did my morning piece and then took the afternoon off. I thought, you know what, it's a nice day. So I went in the lower road, went over to North Van, and all the way in the lower road in North Van, and I stopped in Dundee and had a pint, some fish and chips, and go to Marine Drive, the nice way out. And then it starts raining by the time I get out, pretty much out to Horseshoe Bay. So by the time you have to go back up on the highway, and then back down the highway, it's starting to rain pretty hard, come off the off ramp off the highway, and the police are there, ticketing people, because everyone comes off to the highway there, to that little section where you gotta go down to Horseshoe Bay, if anyone knows that. It goes right to 50, and the police there are just like pulling people over left, right, and center, because everyone comes off the highway, and they're catching, and it's starting to rain, so I asked the police officer, I said, is it legal for me to go to the end of the underpass and wait for my friend out of the rain? And she said, yeah, it's fine, just do it at the end. We need room to pull cars over. So I pull to the other end of the underpass and pull my bike off the side of the road, and I'm waiting and looking, and I got a bit of time setting my bike, and then I think, oh, it's about time, she should be showing up, and the police are pulling cars over, and then there's Shen comes off the highway, she starts coming past the police, she's coming in the underpass, and I put my bike up in the screen, I went, as she's riding towards me, doing this thing, and then she's coming through the underpass, and she's in the dark part, and she starts coming out of the light, and I realize that it's not Shannon. And this the meanest fucking looking biker from right out of 1974, with his big red beard all done up with beads, and a broken nose, he's the dirtiest fucking look. As he drives by me, and I'm like, and I was thinking, oh, man, I mean, I have a uni job, and I have a good dental plan, but I'm really glad the cops are right there, right? And then my last thought was like, I really hope the guy's not on my fucking ferry. And so the moral of both my stories is if you ride with me, there's no need for you to be stupid because I got you covered.
But yeah, I mostly these days write motorcycle essays, and I'm having more and more fun talking about motorcycles to people who don't ride motorcycles. Because as fun as it is to share, like we all know what we're talking about, we have this connection, all that, like I'm having more and more fun to tell people who have no clue or don't know about the spirit of the community to like what it's all about, you know, because it's completely new to them. And sometimes I'm bored by conversations, so I enjoy having new and unique conversations. So that's what this essay is about. All right, and it starts like all my stories from my storytelling night with one time I rode. One time I rode to the grocery store. I took my helmet off and shoved my sunglasses and gloves into it while walking into the store. I grabbed my items, brought them to the checkout. The cashier greeted me and then scanned everything so quickly that she could comfortably pause while I tried to keep up and hastily stuff everything into my backpack. She looked at my sparkly silver glitter helmet, the Biltwell Gringo, that I had placed on the counter and said, "Wow, I love your helmet." "Thanks," I replied. She went on, "It's so pretty." And I was like, "I know, isn't it? I think it's too." And she continued, "Like a disco ball, very shiny." And I replied, "Yeah, that's true. I hope it makes me visible enough for car drivers so they don't kill me as easily." And she went, "Oh, okay." I was done packing up my groceries, I paid, and I took my helmet and said, "Thanks, have a great day." Oh no, the cashier said, "Thanks, have a great day." Pure polite Canadian. And I, German, said, "Thanks, you too. Watch out for motorcycles." So yeah, a little bit more direct. And in my head I thought, and may you always drive safely and never hit, harm, or hurt a motorcyclist. That's what I silently thought to my realistic but hopeful self. This pretty much identical exchange has happened to me countless times throughout the years of riding. At the store, at the library, at school, at work, at the dentist, in the ferry lineup, in the parking lot, at the damn impound, when picking up my totaled motorcycle, twice. I'm fully aware that it always starts as a friendly small talk interaction and then becomes an awkward moment about something bigger. And I'm well aware that I create that awkwardness. But I can live with that awkwardness because I live. Because I'm live and some other riders are not. It's awkward because it's true. That sparkly, shiny glitter helmet might have gotten a few car drivers' attention on the road. Maybe it prevented a left turner from pulling out to do their move when they saw me approach the intersection like a backlit disco ball, and they suddenly decided that I was closer than they first thought. If they even saw me at all, before that sudden twinkle in the sun caught their eye. That sweet, silver-flaked, cute helmet sure looks attractive enough to non-motorcyclists to comment on it and superficially connect with me. But just like some of them don't see me coming around the corner on my bike when they drive, they don't see that heavy, uncomfortable statement coming in hot in a harmless little over-the-counter conversation in which they are properly made aware of the fact that this cute, cool helmet also has at least two life-saving functions besides aesthetics. Create visibility to avoid an impact, and impact protection in case the visibility part didn't work so well. I'm asking you, as fellow riders, and as a German who's been trained in Canadian small talk for over a decade now, is it rude to remind random people in everyday life that drivers often don't see or don't look out for motorcyclists and injure them? Is it necessary? Is it okay? I'm still debating it myself, depending on my mood of the day and whether I'm down for big talk or not. But it definitely ties in with another development that has been taking place deep down in myself, in my motorcycle soul, which is that I slowly but surely increasingly prefer talking about riding and bikes with non-motorcyclists. I swear, it has nothing to do with you. It's me. I'm just not that kind of full-blooded biker. I'm happy, very happy to be part of the motorcycle bubble, but I also have a lot of fun escaping it and getting away from the narrowness of motoculture and sometimes immature cliques. And it's even more fun to deconstruct the exclusivity by recruiting new riders and making the bubble grow bigger. Join me in a thought experiment for a second and imagine a world where everyone rides a motorcycle. Does it excite you or does it bum you out? Would you still ride? Would we still wave at each other in the wild, aka traffic? Did our bubble just burst? Here's another anecdote. One time I went to a dinner at my friend's house and had a great evening chatting with their other friends who had never met before. We discussed our city, latest movies, traveling, oh my god, even religion and politics, and everything was well until I mentioned in passing that I ride motorcycles. Suddenly, the choir came out of three mouths. Whoa, that's so dangerous. And then the cherry on top, you gotta be really careful. I heard that before. I'm sure you have too many times on a date, at a family barbecue, during a job interview, or even when visiting the doctor. And once again I ask, is it polite, nice, cool thing to say to a rider? Don't they know that we know that it's dangerous? Shouldn't these thoughts rather be actions that eliminate said danger, namely in the form of being a driver that watches out for motorcyclists, or in full consequence, telling other drivers to watch out for motorcycles? So ultimately I wonder, why is there so much repetitive small talk around riding motorcycles, within and outside the bubble? What I sometimes miss and always thrive on are reflective, real conversations and not knowing what the person I talk with will say next. Sure, relating and sharing and understanding is great, and definitely a given amongst us riders. But I feel the urge right now to get out and make people who are not part of the motorcycle community get it. With stories, with examples, comparisons, convincing them of our cause with excitement. I'd like to explain, educate, and enthuse a la, no, only douchebags, criminals are in 1% clubs, and yes, loud pipes may indeed save lives. And you love skiing? Just imagine you could ski to work. That's what riding feels like. I choose my words widely when talking to non-riders. I quit the jargon. I say a lot and talk bikes to whomever I can. And I often end a friendly chat with a wise reminder about shoulder checking. Similarly, we should always check and challenge ourselves as riders. Be a motorcyclist that looks outside their own bubble of brand and type of bike or riding style. Actively seek out the bigger picture and paint it. Stop that cliche, riding is freedom, blah, blah, blah. And instead ask, why am I seeking a feeling that's likely a given in my life, a life that's clearly privileged enough to choose this very stupid, fun vehicle in the first place? Look across the border of your own ride. What do you know about the Japanese Bozozuku subculture? Or what do you know about the 3 female motorcyclists who have recently been arrested in Dubai? Why are there no Triumph rockets, currently the largest engine street motorcycle produced, being sold in the Philippines, Vietnam, and Thailand? Did you know that the very first motorcycle ever built featured a wooden frame and its combustion engine was heated by an external flame? Have you test-ridden an electric bike and formed your own opinion about whether this is the future of two-wheeled vehicles or not? And so on. My conclusion is that the biker bubble, just like any bubble, can protect and feel really cool and cozy, but it's only truly safe for everyone and personally enriching when it overlaps with the non-rider bubble. So we gotta poke some holes into both of these microcosms, here and there, because quick and easy awkward moments are better than prolonged pain, right? Everything sucks when it's based on exclusivity instead of enmeshment, with what is perceived as the other thing. Be it the crotch rocket when you're on a cruiser, be it motorcycling as a luxurious commodity versus motorcycling as an affordable, practical means of transportation, or a cager in the oncoming lane who's seemingly after your life, but might just not have seen you. So drivers must watch out for us because of the blatant statistical truth that cars kill riders. Just as we must stretch our necks and turn our gaze away from our own path. Just for a second, for safety and for sophistication, and look for unknown historical motor facts or social injustices in the realms of riding. Poking the bubble is challenging, but rewarding and definitely needed, because sometimes a bright, flashy, shiny, glittery, sparkly, twinkling helmet is just not enough.